Hello, YouTube land. This is Brenton Son coming to you from Lexington, Kentucky, the Bluegrass State. I have something really cool today. Someone who lives in Kentucky here, and anytime I get someone from Kentucky, it's kind of like a fellow brother of Kentucky kind of feel to it, like family or something. So this is super cool for me. And this guy's got some interesting stories to tell on the Bigfoot genre again tonight. And his name is Brandon, and he is from uh, down near south of where I live, in more of a southern part of Kentucky. And we're just going to go straight to him, and we're going to start this out with something from when he started having these encounters. He started speaking about it and asking people around his region. And there's one really interesting thing that he had heard from one of his family members that was heard at the store. And this is just so crazy. You got to hear it. And then we'll talk about we'll build up through his encounters. And if it goes too long, we'll have him back for a second part, which I think that might be the case. But anyway, how you doing today, Brandon?
I'm doing excellent. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful, man. And your name is almost my name.
Yes, sir.
Really close to it there. And you don't hear many Brandons or Brentons. So we both had to grow up with a name that wasn't very common. But,
Yeah, you're right there. Yeah.
but anyway, man, can you tell us about that story that you heard from a relative there? Kind of give us the lowdown on that, if you would.
No problem. Yes. Yeah. Encountering these things. I had seen several of them, and yeah, like you said, I started opening up to some family, trying to talk to them, talk about it to them, and some of them are interested. They like to hear some of the stories or the encounters I've had. Well, my mother-in-law is where this particular story comes from. Like I said, it's word of mouth, but I believe what she has said, what she told me, I believe is what she heard. Now, I wasn't there, but this is how it goes. She works 1 or 2 days out of the week in a different county. They have another location, office location. Well, that particular day, the whole office decided to go out to eat at a restaurant. Well, there was, I guess, about a half a dozen of them or so. Well, they all walked in, and there was an empty table next to, I think they said about 3 fish and wildlife officers and a couple county. I can't remember exactly if it was a couple county or state troopers. I can't remember exactly, but one of the two. Well, they were sitting there eating lunch, and I guess about, sitting right next to all these officers, she claimed that, they could hear pretty much every word that they was talking about. Well, about halfway through lunch, she overhears one of them say, well, has anybody heard about that creature that they had found in the county that I live in up on the mountain? And another officer said, well, I heard about it, but I haven't heard too much. Do you know anybody that was there? And supposedly one of the Fish and Wildlife officers said, I was there. I seen the creature. And supposedly this officer went into a little more detail and said, telling, the other officers at the table, not aware that my mother-in-law was listening to this conversation. And supposedly he told these other officers that a guy here in the county that I live in, up on the mountain, is what he said, supposedly, had a farm and had found a deceased creature on his farm. Well, this officer claims that several people were called out to this farm and to observe this animal, and when he arrived, there was people around this animal, and he claimed that this animal was around 7 foot tall, was covered in hair and had ape-like features, walked bipedal, and weighed over 600 pounds. They looked at this animal supposedly, whatever they did, and then she stated that he claimed that, I can't remember if it was a coroner vehicle or a truck, pulled up, they loaded it into the back and sent it to Frankfort, Kentucky for further evaluations.
That's incredible.
Everybody that worked with her supposedly heard this, and the rest of the day that was supposedly the talk around the office, and nobody could believe what they had heard, because none of them except my mother-in-law really even considered there being a creature like this out there. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. And your mother-in-law, she isn't, I mean, do you think that she would be the type to exaggerate something like that, or to tell you something that wasn't true just to mess with you or something, or?
No. My mother-in-law, I mean, I'm not trying to brag, but she loves me dearly. She sees me as her own. No, she knew I would be devastated if I knew that this was a hoax, was not true.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, and I could see the excitement in her. She did that night. She called me on the way home from work and had to explain it to me. And then when she got home, she had to come by our house and the whole 9 yards. She was just all tore up, excited. So no, I really don't see this being.
Yeah. Oh, I believe it. I don't.
Right. Unless it was something on the officer's part, not telling the truth. I believe everything she had said. I mean, the only thing I would doubt is she would have got a word or two mixed up here, but no, I believe what she said. I believe it. But like me and you mentioned, we have a lot of friends in law enforcement around here, and I have tried to dig into that to see if, we have a friend that's magistrate, a friend that's constable, a friend that's a judge. We've tried to talk to a lot of people, and nobody has supposedly heard of this. But, like I said earlier, there's no telling. If they want to keep it quiet, somebody might be threatening to lose their job.
And I think that would be a need to know thing anyway. And the Fish and Wildlife would probably be called out there for sure, because they would be interested in what kind of creature. And then I believe it might have probably been state troopers, or it might have been sheriffs. I don't know, but these things have been reported to happen before. And what happens is they bag it up, and then they ship it somewhere. Nobody ever sees of it, and it's told, everybody's told to not speak of it no more, or they lose their job. And there's been other police officers that's been called out, and they were told, and then they started talking a little bit. I think on Sasquatch Chronicles there's one story like that, and there ended up being some government type people came, and basically told the chief police, this needs to be shut up about, and so the guy ended up losing his job, and he never could be a cop again nowhere, because he didn't.
Trust me, I've tried my hardest to dig up to try to find out the farmer, because I would personally like to get some details if he would come off of it. I would like to been a fly on the wall and hear what they told him.
Oh man,
you know what I mean? Don't.
So this creature was deceased on the property, is kind of what she had told.
Supposedly, from what I gather, I guess it had died from natural causes, or, like I said, I wish I could, get into contact with somebody that had, a first-hand account in it. But so I'm guessing it probably just died of natural causes, and if farmer come across it, I really don't. I don't know. I wish I knew.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because there's stuff around there, and in the county you live in. Are you going to tell the county you live in, or are you going to keep that kind of to yourself?
I can.
I don't think it's
Pulaski County here. It backs up all of my interactions has been right here around the Daniel Boone National Forest.
Right, yeah. See, that's a very hot area, and even Kurt Stokes, he gets some stuff from Daniel Boone National Forest area.
Yeah. Yeah.
I believe that's a big hot spot for this kind of thing. Well, I appreciate you telling that, man. I just thought that was very interesting.
No problem.
And even though we can't prove it, the source you got it from, it's just hard for me to believe that there wasn't something to that, whether it was misheard or whatever. But I think that it was fairly accurate and something got covered up. Baron Coonbo's talked a few episodes about similar type things, but anyway, let's go to the stories that you emailed me, and let's kind of walk through that progression of kind of how things escalated to that time where you got the growl that messed with you pretty bad. I don't want to give it away, but
okay. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and give you a little short biography on my beliefs and stuff on the creature as a kid. As a kid, you know, I was really intrigued and interested about Bigfoot, you know, the topic. And I'd seen, you know, me and my mother had seen the Patterson-Gimlin field on TV a couple times, and I would ask her and my father, you know, look at that. That's real. That's real. No, that's a man in a suit. You know, that's nothing but a fairy tale. It's a myth, and things don't exist. You know, blah, 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 the whole 9 yards. You know, I've always, like I said, I've always had a very good fascination. Well, so therefore, I've grown up to believing that Bigfoot or Sasquatch is a myth, fairy tale, etc. Well, yeah, I had turned about 20 years old. I had turned 19 and found a pretty house out through here. Been house shopping. Found a house, beautiful place. Loved the layout. Loved the, you know, a 19-year-old. Went ahead and bought it. Bought this house. Ended up getting married. Having a kid, and then several years down the road having another one. Well, all of this starts in this house. We lived there. We lived there a few years, and everything, 2 or 3 years, and everything was perfect. You know, loved the property, didn't have one little problem. Well, just you know, this wasn't constant, but it was just every now and then we would get weird things like tapping on the window, don't, and or you know, just different rhythm, or but we would get taps on the windows, and my wife would be all freaked out. What was that? Who was that? I would go look. Nothing to be seen. A bird must have flew into the window or something, you know.
Yeah.
But this always happened at night, you know. Bigfoot was always the last, never thought of. Well, at times we would have, we would be sitting there or doing something, and a bam. Our house would just shake, smack so hard that literally a few times I thought one of my drunken buddies or something had swung by to see me and backed into the house or pulled up into the house, you know, and go out, there'd be nothing. And, you know, not seeing a car halfway hanging out of my house, I'd figure, well, where my house sits, there's a steep slope in the back, right off the back deck, so maybe a tree limb fell off and landed on the house. So in the morning, I'll crawl up there and cut the big tree limb off, and sometimes I'd inspect that night to see if there was something hanging up. Never anything on the roof, never a branch, never could figure out the sources of this. And so hard, sometimes it'd feel like a tree or, like I said, a car hitting the house. Never found nothing. We would just always chalk it off, you know, just no telling. Well, this got to happening more frequent, more often, and, you know,
You were saying you were hearing stuff like on your deck too, right?
Exactly, yeah. We would hear walking sometimes like on the deck. And later on, I went out and, you know, once I kind of figured out what was going on, months or years down the road here, I would go out and walk the back deck. And these footsteps that we was hearing was, I mean, you could barely make, if I would go through and stomp, when I walked, I would just about make the sound. It just didn't sound right. You know what I mean? You'd have the smack of your shoe, and it just didn't sound right. It didn't I could not get an imitation of what we would hear walk across the porch. The only thing I could say is what we heard walk across that porch sounded very, very heavy, like a horse. You know, you wouldn't hear the clomp of the hoof, but it was like the weight of a horse walking across our back deck, if you see, you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You know, things like that. And, yeah, I mean, it just, sometimes we would have the screen door, like open and slammed, you know, and it was, you know, we kept it shut, but we would always mark it off it to be in the wind or just something. You know what I mean? We always tried to find a reasonable explanation. Or if we didn't have a reasonable explanation, then we just wrote it off.
Right.
Because this was the last thing in our minds. But, yeah, things like this went on. And something else that I forgot to mention to you, Brenton, which I don't know what to make of it. But I have a daughter that is 9 years old, a stepdaughter that is 9 years old. Okay, at this age, she was 3 or 4. Some nights she would come out of the house, or come running through the house, crying and screaming, and we would ask her what's wrong, and she would say that the shadow man come to the window and was trying to talk to me. I forgot to mention this. I'm sorry, but and we would ask her, well, what would he say? Well, you know, we just didn't. We kindly thought that it was her imagination at first or a dream, but this kept happening over and over, and we would ask her, well, what did they say? And she would say, well, I can't understand them. So I would, you know, every time I would go outside and I would check out, you know, look around. But the problem was where her windows was, there was either a concrete paddock or a wood deck. So there was no way of leaving footprints unless, you know, and the place there, the yard anyways, is hard and grass, so it's not ideal for finding footprints or anything anyways. But never could come up with nothing. And, but I guess where it really took the turn is one night I was off. I think I was at my parents', which is about 6 miles down the road, and I got a call from my wife. And she explained that she heard walking across the back deck. So she walked over to the back door, which is in the kitchen, and she pulled back the blind to look through and see who or what, you know, what was going on. And when she did, she said she pulled the blind open and seen him and slammed the blind shut and then went and grabbed the kids and ran upstairs. But she just told me, get home. Well, when I got home, I kept asking her, you know, what did they look like? What was they wearing? You know, because I was trying to, you know, she never said she heard any vehicles because I was interrogating her. I was trying to get questions, you know, did you see a vehicle come by or did anything like that? And before this happened, what was they wearing? What color clothes? And she just kept saying, I don't know, you know, it was just weird. You know, I don't know. They was dressed in all black, like they had like a black, it looked like, I don't know, they was facing away from me. They had their back to her, but she said it just looked, she said it was just uniformed black, like from head to toe. And something that she just said he was very tall, is what she kept saying. That was something she kept saying. He was very tall, and he was just dressed in all black. And at one time she even said, I just don't understand because wear, like, if you're wearing a shirt and pants and shoes, wear the break of your shirt and then the break to your pants. You know what I mean? Even if you are wearing all black, you should see a break into. She said she didn't see that. It was just like somebody was wearing like an all black jumpsuit. And keep in mind, these are people to us. This is a prowler, but. I look around and do my whole routine and nothing. The rest of the night, nothing goes on. We had even called the police one time, and all they would do if they did send a unit, it'd be an hour later, hour or more later, and then here they come, they pull up and ask them if we seen them, where'd they go, and if anything, they just walk around shining their light in the yard, and that's it. And so, after once of that, what good's that going to do? You know what I mean? By the time they get here, they'll be in another county, and they still ain't going to do nothing for me. So I just kind of quit. I'll take matters into my own hands if it gets too bad. Well, just occasional, now and then, like I said, we get a tap on the window, or and sometimes we would hear something that sounded like a rock instead of a smack, or, now I'm saying smack. Back then we didn't know how to explain it, like a car hit the house, but the only thing I can guess is that they run up and just smack the house, bam, or something, or shoulder it, but we never had any broken siding, or, so I don't know if they was open palming it. I have no clue, but, but we had this stuff going on, and just every now and then. And Brenton, me and her have got to talking and thinking, a lot I think brought them in was my wife was bad about making dinner, a big old dinner, and then there'd be twice what we'd eat left, and if she didn't want to save it, then I would not let her throw it in the trash can. I would say, make a pot for me, and I'll go out there and feed it to the animals. There ain't no sense in throwing perfectly good food right down the trash for it to go to the dump. And then they have to, animal has to go and choke on a bunch of trash getting to it. So I'll just take the food out and dump it in the woods. Well, some nights, it would be a big old pot. It might be a day or two collected. But I'd go out and dump it, and always the next day it was always gone, every bit of it. And, I think that they was probably coming in and eating that food. And maybe on nights, like I said, I didn't throw it out every night. Sometimes I would save up a night or two, or sometimes we either... for some reason we didn't cook as much, or we might eat out for a night or two and not have no scraps, so it might have been a week, and I can't really remember if this, like I said, then it was a prowler, I'd have no belief in this, and I'm thinking that the times that the knocking on the windows and the slapping on the house and the rocks, sometimes it sounded like rocks bouncing off the house. I think it might have been, it could have been, I'm not, but I think it might have been, maybe we hadn't laid some scraps out, and they was kind of expressing it. They could have been expressing that.
Yeah.
But I guess the next event, just things like that happening, not every night, but, just, it would happen once every 2 nights, and then once through a week, never knew. But one day I was working, and this was somewhere around noon, or a little after. But my wife had called me on my cell phone, and she was all hysterical. Well, I've seen him again. She pulled into the driveway, and she thought she seen somebody on the porch, on the back porch. We got a porch that wraps around 3/4 of the house, and she thought she had seen somebody, around the corner of the back porch. And when she pulled into the coming down the road, and when she pulled into the driveway, it bolted. It shot off the back porch and run down towards a branch. Now, where this thing ran, that's what I didn't get. When, she called me and told me this thing ran. Well, I have a row of trees. There's a bank, and I had a pine tree, a pear tree, a pine tree, and a pear tree. And 4 trees planted, on this bank. And this, she said he run down the yard, run off that bank, and then down into like a dry creek down in the holler. Now, when I got home and got out there, I'm asking her, what did this person look like? And again, and she describes the same thing, the exact same thing. This person was wearing all black, and he was tall, and he just moved so quick. I just don't. It was so weird, so freaky. I don't like this, and I remember things just didn't seem right, but like I'm sure there's some people out there that can attest to what I'm saying, that there ain't no Bigfoot, you know what I mean? There's nothing, that don't even cross your mind. If you're growing up, it's a fairy tale.
Yeah.
So I'm not understanding why this person would do this, because where he ran into a little lock, a stretch of woods, there was a creek in it, but it separated my yard from the neighbor's field, but you couldn't see the neighbors. But it was just a little strip of woods. But, it didn't make sense to me as to why a person would run there. It's not very good concealment. You could jump into a big ditch, but it just didn't really make sense to me. But she got to claiming, she said, it just, see that bank right there at them trees? And I said, yeah. And she said it was like when he slowed down there, and it was like he just stepped. Later on, she told me, after this, these, my later encounters, but she said that it was like he stepped off that bank, which on me, I could have run and jumped. But, but she said he stepped, and it took me 3 or 4 steps, 5 steps to get down it, 4 or 5 steps to get down the bank. And she said it took him 1 step. And then he continued on down through the rest of my yard into the woods. And I asked her again, what was they wearing? It was all black. Well, he was, it was just wearing all black, black, I guess, black shoes, black pants, black hoodie with the hood up, and black gloves, and it just didn't make sense to me. And at this point, it was not cold outside. It was pretty humid. It just didn't make sense to me. It was coming into fall, autumn, but it was still nice and hot and humid outside. I looked around. There was impressions in the grass, but there was no definite footprints, nothing of that sort. I went and looked around. I just couldn't understand why I wasn't finding no tracks of a human. Humans are, I just wasn't understanding at the time why I wasn't finding no tracks of this dude. Humans are clumsy. They're going to run up this bank, this dirt bank. They're going to step in it, and they ain't going to really worry, about leaving a track. They're just worried about getting up out of there. Later on, I'm looking back, that should have been a flag, and all of that should have been a flag to me. And that's what I think, that's the problem today, Brenton, is, it's just a myth. It don't exist, and people overlook things right in front of their face, because I've done it for years. They overlook stuff right in front of them, tall tale signs, and they just throw it aside. And if there's a flag, or a red flag pops up, that ain't right. If they can't find a reasonable explanation, then they just throw it out the window. Like we was talking earlier.
Yeah.
But things just kept going on. I never found nothing of it, but, I thought I've had enough of this. This is it. So I was like, I've had enough. This person ain't taking nothing. He keeps coming around my house. Not one thing's come up missing. So he must have some bad intentions on his mind or something. This is going on too long. You know, I just thought somebody was coming around scoping out the place or something, you know.
Yeah.
And, well, we had, and one night, Brenton, we had something come up to the front porch, and we was in bed. Okay, we had just laid down. We hadn't been laid down long, and we was still halfway awake. And the screen door, I mean, it wasn't a screen door, it was fully glass, you know, but that's what I call it, a screen door. You know, so when it shuts, it's got a distinct sound, that glass rattling in the frame and whatnot. Well, something comes up to the screen door, and I've tried imitating this several times. But something took the screen door and goes, smack, 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 smack. And I mean, it got faster and faster, and so fast, it was almost like you hear a woodpecker. You know what I mean? How fast a woodpecker will on a tree. That's how fast that screen door got to, you know, it was like, it was bang, 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 bang. And it just constantly got faster. And my woman looked at me, and her eyes was as big as Coke cans, and mine was too. And I swung out of bed, and I got a window about 8 foot from my bed, and I darted to that window and flung it open and flung my head out of it, and nothing. Nobody. And, you know, I got a pretty decent-sized yard. A person, if they was to try that, and then the time it took me to get from my bed to my window, I don't think, I mean, I guess they could have ran it right around the corner of the house. And that's what I was thinking at the time, but they couldn't have got out of sight, you know, to a building or anything. My buildings are about 60 yards away from the house.
Yeah.
So, and that's what I thought, he must have run around the corner of the house. But, you know, things like that going on. But you just really can't, you know, you can't explain it, but we was just shrugging it off. And, you know, looking back, it was ignorant, you know, really ignorant. Especially, I have no clue if it had anything to do with it. I mean, it possibly could be, but these things coming to the windows and looking back at my daughter saying that something was coming to the window and trying to talk to her, but she couldn't understand it. You know, at the time we thought it was maybe imagination or, you know, ignorant. You know, I should have been, my eyes should have been open more, and I should have been trying to do something. You know, that's a little scary. Your daughter saying stuff like that.
Yeah.
You know, but just ignorant on my behalf, I guess. But one night, you know, I went so far as to, you know, I'd loaded up a shotgun and my pistol, and I would go sit and sneak. I'd get all, you know, either dark clothes on or camouflage, and I would crawl up onto my roof and try to watch my front yard, which I had a big night light that sits on a pole, you know, a light pole in my yard, so it lights up my front yard really good. But I have a row of trees that come up my driveway, so my garages and stuff, one of my garages is lit up good because I have a light on it. But my bigger garage, you can see the front part,
Yeah.
and then it runs long ways away from my house, so you can't really see nothing else. It's all in shadows. So I would even go back and sit into the barn at sometimes to where I could look down towards the house and in the yard, and my eyes would adjust into the darkness so I could see. I had a little, like maybe a 3/4 of an acre, a little part of a field that run back behind my garages and my barn. So I would sit there and try to watch a little part of it, and my yard, but nothing, you know. Every time that I sat out, nothing ever happened. And that started really frustrating me. So after a time, you know, a little time, I started, but some nights that I wouldn't go out, we would have a tap or something, you know, just something go on. Well, one night we were sleeping, and my wife shakes me and wakes me up. She tells me, look, there he is again, you know. So I get up, and it takes me a second, for my eyes to adjust, but I get up, and I focus in on it, and sure enough, there's something standing right in. I got a concrete or a blacktop drive that goes right up to my bigger garage, and this is where it was standing. But like I said at the time, I thought this was a person. Even though when I looked out the door, looked out the window, I should have known better. But here's this thing standing there, and here he is standing there, and no longer than I see it, I quickly and as quietly as I can, I fumble and get my pistol, and I slip my shoes on, and I sneak downstairs, and I unlock the bolts and the chain, and real quiet, and unlock the door. And as soon as I got it unlocked, I just flung it open and took off down my sidewalk. Well, my sidewalk runs kind of like the barn's. It's about let's see, I think it's about 40 foot wide, and maybe a little over 100 foot, about 100 foot long, and it faces away, the long way towards, the 100 foot long is away from my house. It goes away from my house. Well, the sidewalk kind of runs like the garage, parallel in the garage a little bit. Well, this thing was standing right in front of my bigger garage, right in the middle of the drive, about 10 foot away from the doors. I have a big pair of double metal doors, and standing about 10 feet, and it's like it's just staring at the garage. And this is kind of why I thought it was a person too, because maybe it's like, I look back and it was kind of like it was studying it, and I was thinking that it was a person studying how to break in my garage. Well, I just thought that there was nothing to ever mess with, but I booked down the sidewalk, and when I was taking off down the sidewalk, I seen this thing. When I pulled off down that sidewalk, he jetted from where he was standing. He was still standing where I seen him out the window. He was still standing in that exact same spot. Well, he darted to our left, my left and his left, because he was facing away from me. He darted to the left, and there were some shadows in between my little garage and my bigger garage. There's a bank that goes down from my little garage, and then it flattens out to my big garage. Well, he ran in between that bank and my big garage, hit them shadows. Well, I was right on his tail. I mean, I was about 30 yards at the furthest, at least 30 yards from him when he hit them shadows. And I just went right after him, the same path he took. Well, when I guess we ran about 100 yards, I could hear because once it got to my bigger field, I didn't mow it. So it was weeds about knee high. So when we was running through that, I was making noises, but you could kind of hear. But I got to noticing, I got up through next to my garage, and he had done entered the woods about, like I said, we ran from where we went into the shadows, we ran about 100 yards. I ran about 40 yards, or 50, and I heard him break the woods. So where he entered the woods was about 100 yards from where I first seen him. Well, I only ran about 50 yards, and I'm not a slow guy. Then I was about 180 pounds, and I'm 5'7", and very fit. I raced motocross, so I was actively training then, running, weightlifting, just staying fit. So by no means I was not slow. But this thing was gaining ground on me and entered the woods and then just tore up the hill. Well, by the time I got to where he entered the woods, he was done somewhere to about over 60, almost 100 yards up that hill. I covered that 50 yards. he had done made it about 100 yards up that hillside, straight up the hill. Thick, nasty stuff. I couldn't have done it. And, you know, the whole time I did not see one light, one flashlight, nothing, you know. It wasn't a full moon, but it wasn't a dark night. You know, you could see a little bit, but once you got into the woods, it was a little hard to see. But he just tore out that hillside. Crash, and you know, and it almost seemed like it didn't take him many bounds to get up the hill. And I was noticing all of this at that time, and when I run into the woods, I'm like, this, you know, I stopped. I'm like, this kind of ain't right. This dude's whooped my butt. You know, I booked it, and he gained ground on me and some up through these woods, and he ain't got a light. Something ain't right here. And so I stopped, and I'm listening. You know, this thing stops up this hillside. Like I said, it's just, don't hear another word. You know, so by now I'm pretty peed off, and I'm giving it my peace of mind, cussing it, you know, letting them know that if they come back around, they're not going to be so lucky, and I'm going to get them one of these times, you know, and nothing. Well, I knew whatever this was just standing there watching me, so I thought, this dude just got some nuts on him. So I was like, we'll see here. So I raised my gun up to where, you know, I aimed up in his direction towards where I knew he was, but there was a bank in front of me. You know, I wasn't just shooting blindly through the woods. I put off a couple rounds into this bank, you know, in his direction, but right into this bank. And I figured if it was a person, they'd have probably just booked it trying to get out of there. But odd enough, no movement. And whatever it was just stayed there. I don't know. It creeped me out. So I sit there for a few minutes thinking they'll wander off, and you know, and something else I done too is when so I just got tired of saying, you know, it's a little creepy. I backed on out of there. I let them, you know my peace of mind, you know, give them a couple good threats, and I slowly worked back towards the house. I'd stop a little bit, see if I could hear them move off, but you know, I never heard them move back off, or I never heard them move no more. So I just made it back to the house, and I sat up for a little while. You know, the rest of the night was uneventful, so I ended up going off sleep. Had to work next day. After that, things got a little peaceful for a little while. You know, like I told you earlier, I can't remember if it was a couple weeks or maybe up to a month, but it was somewhere between a couple weeks and a month. You know, things was pretty nice. But, you know, of course, there was a lot of things that was just red flag, and, you know, but I just wasn't thinking, you know, Bigfoot, but I had all these things, you know, something just wasn't right about this, you know.
So basically, you chased him off there, and for a while there was nothing that went on, and from there, wasn't that when you all ended up leaving, or did more stuff happen there?
No, we really hadn't left. No, not yet. I mean, no, not yet. We hadn't left any. No, I mean, after the next thing, you know, that happened there, it was a little hair raising. Yeah, we wasn't so apt to stay there.
So was the next thing the incident where you were in the bed?
No, that was the incident where I was in the bed. She woke me up and had seen someone standing in front of the garage.
Okay.
Yeah, that was the incident in the bed.
Okay. The next thing was the when you all were watching the movie.
Yes, sir.
Okay, let's move on to that one. And
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Well, one night we had decided to watch a movie. I can't remember what the movie was, but my son was interested in my wife, so we all sat down in the living room one night to watch the movies. And I have 3 kids, but the other 2 I think was off with the grandmother. And but my middle child was the one that was with us. He's 6 now. At the time, he was probably about 3 or so. And we had watched these movies, and my son had ended up falling asleep. We have like a big like an L-shaped couch. I don't know what you would call that, but it's like a big L, big old couch. You know, one person could sleep on one end, and the other person could sleep on the other. Big L-shaped couch. But my son was laying on one end watching a movie, and my wife was laid out, and she had a pillow laid in my lap. Her head was laid in my lap. Well, we had watched the movie, and my son had fell asleep, my wife had fell asleep, and the movie had went off, and I decided I was going to, just watch something else. So I had turned on another movie and was sitting there watching it. And at this time, it was around 12 to 1 a.m., It was getting late, really late. And on my back porch, my back porch stretches all along the back of the house, but there's a set of steps right there at the edge of the house, at the living room. Well, I heard 2 distinct footsteps, a boom and boom, and it stopped right in front. I had some double windows to my left. It had been about my 9 o'clock position where I was sitting, and there was a pair of double windows. Now, I have to make this clear. There was blinds. There was blinds up on my windows because all this stuff going on, my wife was always saying, feels like somebody's staring at me, it feels like somebody's watching me, it's just creepy, and all the pecking on the windows and weird stuff. My wife we did not have one window that wasn't covered,
Yeah.
But the thing about it is we could be out on the back deck at night, and the kids would be in the living room playing, and as long as there was some light source on in the living room, a TV or a light, you could see through the blinds. You could see from the outside in, but if you was in the house, you could not see from the inside out. Do you understand that?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
It's kind of a thinner blind. You could see standing on the back porch and see just almost clear as day, through the blinds, which really was pointless. But I guess it kept you ensured that you wouldn't see nothing. So, But I heard this, and I just, I got to thinking that's awful heavy footsteps, but I got to check this out. If that's the SOB, then I'm gonna, I've had it. Well, I leaned up to go look at this out the window, to go look to see what this was. And when I leaned up and to move my wife's head out of my lap, this thing hit me with a growl. And the growl was so intense. Like I was telling you earlier, I have like a cathedral ceiling in the house, and it was the person that lived there before me had put it up, but they had like a tin, a shiny metal tin for the ceiling of the cathedral, and some nice woodwork. But when this thing growled, it shook that tin, and we had like a metal wine rack next to the window, which I wasn't 10 foot from the window, but this wine rack rattled. When this thing growled, things rattled, and I could feel, I didn't mention this to you, but I could feel it in me, too. You could almost like it was rattling organs, or you could just feel it. It was intense. And how I explain it to other people And I mean, my wife sleeps hard, and my son does too. You can't, I do too. You can't wake none of us up hardly, but they slept through it. But, this thing, it was almost demonic, like, that's how I explained it for a long time. It was just almost demonic. It was so deep, and I thought, and this is how, the only animal that I could see making that type of guttural sound would be something like a big, almost an elephant or something of that magnitude, just a big guttural sound that would shake like that.
And what did it do to you physically? I mean,
it felt like somebody, and like me and you talked, I'm not scared of much, and it felt like I was just in sheer terror, and it felt like somebody dumped a cold bucket of water right straight on my head. My whole body just went ice cold, and my gut, I almost got sick, instantly on the spot. I almost just puked. And like we were talking, I don't know if it was just, I hate to say it, but sheer terror, or I was so scared, or, and I still shake. I shake right now talking about it. It works me up.
That's completely reasonable. When something growls and it can rattle your wine rack and your metal on your ceiling and rattle you, I mean, that is enormous kind of something. Plus, you heard the heavy footsteps. All that together, I mean, goodness.
And for me, like I said, I'm shook up right now. There's certain things that I talk about when it pertains to these things, it shakes me up, and I'm never about, nothing does me like that. And it shakes me up talking about it. But it scared me so bad. I just sat there and I was almost just froze. It was almost like it was almost like I was paralyzed, but I was sitting there running things through my mind. Should I move? What should I do? Because this thing, I heard the steps coming, I guess, onto the porch, and I didn't hear nothing. It was like it was growled at me and just sat there and stared.
So you felt like it was still there?
Yeah, like it was still there. I never heard, and I know it was there because I'll tell you here in just I'll tell you why I know it was there. And I just had that thing. I knew it was there for some reason. I just knew it was standing there, looking at me. But I was just running everything through my head. What do I do? This thing's big enough to crash right through that wall and do whatever it wants with us. I got that from the noise it made, from the growl it made at me. I've heard almost everything there is around here. I'm a little country boy. I've been in the woods since I was knee high. And that's one of my passions, being out in the woods. And from the sound this thing made towards me, I knew it could crash through that wall and do whatever it pleased with us. And that's what terrified me. So all of a sudden I just went into action, and I sprung up and grabbed my son, and I just grabbed my wife by the upper arm and drug her off the couch and started dragging her through the living room. She woke up and was pretty heated, and when she stood up, I kind of just squeezed her pretty good, and I said, "Move now." And she listened to me. She said she could just tell by the look at my face and everything that she needed to move. And I got him up there, and I got another gun or so, because I'm telling you, and another feeling I got was, I have a good 10mm pistol, which is a good round. It packs off a good punch, and I need more than that. So I went and got a shotgun with some slugs, and laid it in the corner by my bed and sat out the rest of the night. But after I got them upstairs, like I said, I had to go back downstairs to get to my gun cabinet. And during this, I got them up there and in the bed. And by the time I got back down the stairs, I heard it continue walking, Brenton. Okay, so it stood there, but when I heard it walking, I got my wife and my son up in the bed, and I continued hearing it walk. Actually, we was going up the steps, and the bed isn't 5 foot from the steps, but we was going up the steps, and we could hear it. But it continued walking because the deck runs right along the back wall. But it continued walking down the porch. It didn't turn and come back the way it come. It continued walking by our hot tub, by our pool, and walked all the way down the other side of the porch. Now, it sounded like it took it about 10 steps to do this. And I went out and walked it on a later date, and it took me anywhere from 18 to 20 steps. Good steps, 18 steps. So, whatever this was, I had pretty good, a lot better stride on it than I did too. But at this point, things was starting to come around. What else could some dude ain't just gonna growl at you unless they had some kind of humongous speaker, some 20-inch by 20-inch speaker, and run up and plugged it up right outside my window and blasted it through my wall like that. I have no other explanation for what could have growled at me like that. So, that only leaves me with about one explanation in my mind.
So is that when you started thinking maybe this was some kind of Bigfoot or something?
That's when and don't get me wrong, and this is about when I started, there's something around here, because the night that we seen it in front of the garage,
right,
we got a good look at it. And like I said, it was ignorance in us, but we got a good enough look at it to know it wasn't no darn person. You know what I mean? And like I claimed to you, we remember looking back at it, and I had my wife go up to the window. Once all this junk happened, we started trying to, like I said, find some of this out. We was trying to recreate things. We was trying to stomp across the back porch and make the noises we was hearing and couldn't. We was trying, I went out and stood where we seen this thing, and she said it dwarfed me, and my locks on my garage, I have 2 log chains with a padlock that keeps it locked to keep people out. Well, the locks come up to about my nose or my eye level on me, and I'm 5'7". So they're about, close to a little over 5 foot off the ground. And when this thing was standing in front of the garage, it looked to be, he was about 10 foot from the garage, but it looked to be his chest was about in the lock area. So we was estimating that if I stood up to this thing face to face, that I would probably come to about his titties, or the top of my head would probably come to about his nipples, or I guess somewhere right in there. That's kind of what we estimated. I had went out and stood where we had seen this, and I had my wife go to the window where we was looking at it. And I had when I went to the front door to run out after it, I looked and I could see part of it, but the angle I was at, there was a tree that was kind of obscuring some of it. But I still got a good look, a decent look at it. But she was at the window, and I went down to where it was standing, and she told me, she said, Brandon, that thing dwarfed you. It was, right. It was a lot bigger. And, and when we saw it standing there, it had a slumped over posture to it. And that's why I kept saying, you know, we was ignorant to the fact, because this thing stood nothing like a real human. You know, its back was sloped, kind of like it was hunched down, hunched over a little bit, and its arms was just kind of goofy looking. They was a little too long for what they should have been, it seemed. And I understood what she meant about a hood. It almost looked like this thing had a hood. And when we get to my next sighting, when I was hunting, I can confirm this too. But in these things, their hair, what I've seen, Brenton, the way their hair grows from their head down into their back, it's almost like a little mane. Like they keep like almost like a man. It's kind of hard, but it's almost like a hairdo, like type, like their hair, like they push it back or something. Like all of it pushes back towards the back. And kind of that's what I've seen. You know, that's kind of what it looked. Almost looked like a hood, like somebody had a hood on, but it was.
Right.
It's unique to see, but yeah, the locks on my garage come up to about my nose or eye level, and it seemed like the locks on this thing that was standing there come to about its breast. It's, you know, about to its nipples in that area, its abdomen.
Yeah.
And if I would have been standing up to it, I'd probably come up to about its titty, you know, its breast, the top of my head. So we estimated to be around 7 foot. That's what we think. You know, rough estimate.
Right.
And
yeah, that's probably about when you ended up moving at this point.
Not too long after that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, like I said, we had my father owned 2 houses next to each other. He had bought out my neighbor, or his previous neighbor had moved out, and he had bought his house, and they had moved into it. So yeah, we just it was one of those things. We was going to come stay here a while, and if we wanted to go back, and if we, you know, we still own the place, if we wanted to go back, we would. But you know,
right. Yeah. So what I think what we'll do, since we're at an hour here, is we'll save the hunting stories, because these stories get better, and some of the stuff where they're getting on the roof of the house and the escalation of this, we'll save that for the next.
Yeah. Long story short, I didn't move away from them. I pretty much moved right into them.
Yeah. So this is going to get really good. So I want everybody out there to know you do not want to miss this next part, because he has an encounter where he really gets a good look while he's hunting, and then they begin to do things like getting on the roof of his house, and it gets crazy. So you all
I'm hearing something right now, Brenton. It might be one of the dogs. But
well, I hope it's not something out there, because he still lives in the same area. So, but anyway, man, I hope there's nothing going on tonight for you.
It's storming. It was probably it's storming out here. Probably something blowed over.
Yeah, talking about this, you're gonna probably be listening all night.
Got me on the edge a little bit.
Yeah.
But that's how it goes.
Well, I thank you, man, for sharing this much, and I'll call you back tomorrow, and we'll get to the good stuff, how this escalates, and you actually end up moving into a more active area just down the road at your parents' property. So everybody out there in YouTube land, I hope you enjoy that, and make sure that you listen to the next episode with Brandon here from Kentucky. It's going to get really good. And God bless all of you all, and I'll see you on the next video. Bye-bye.